Hey, I'm Cole Cameron. I'm sitting here with my dad, Craig Cameron, and we're sitting here at the beautiful Devil Horn Ranch. We get a lot of questions about, how did we build this place, or how did you build this place, and how did my mom build this place, and how did we make this happen from doing clinics and really working with the horse. So I'm here with Pop today, and I want to ask him some questions, because I see the industry today, and it's a huge industry. What clinicians like yourself have done are amazing, but I want to know how did you get started in this business? Back when you were my age. Tell me about it. Tell me about your life.
Well, I guess as a kid, always did love horses, and I guess I always wanted to be a cowboy. And one influence that made me feel that way is I was fortunate because we always had ranches in the family, and as you know, and so when I was a kid, we had 1,000 acres in Cat Spring, Texas, which is near Sealy, Texas, which is about an hour or so from Houston, Texas. And so as a kid, I had 2 older brothers and a younger sister, and we lived in Houston, Texas, and so that's where I went to school. And my brothers were really competitive. We were always athletes. My dad was a boxer, so we boxed. We had a boxing ring in the backyard, and we always say when you're got 2 older brothers, you grow up knowing how to take a really good ass whooping. So so you had to be pretty tough. But again, fortunately, we had this 1,000-acre ranch, so we would go up there a lot in the summer and on the weekends. And as a kid, I was really drawn to that. And then we had the Hamer family, which is a renowned Texas family. These guys are in the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame, go back to Frank Hamer, who is credited for tracking down and killing Bonnie and Clyde, and he's considered one of the dean of all Texas Rangers. That family and all those guys were Texas Rangers, and so I just loved those old-time cowboys and stuff, and I just loved that atmosphere, even as a little kid, and so I really wanted to spend a long time there. So my brothers, they loved it, but I guess they weren't as drawn to it as I was. So I would spend my summers there. I would stay with Dennis, the old black cowboy. Sometimes I would spend the night up at their house and just ask a lot of questions, and I just wanted to hang around that. And so as I grew older, we ended up selling the Cat Spring Ranch. My granddad, my mom's dad, he was in the shipping industry, and they got in a little bit of dire straits, and they sold that ranch for $100 an acre. They got $100,000. And boy, you talk about a heartbreaker, man. We, even as just young kids back then, we hated it when they sold that ranch. I mean, my brothers, everybody, because we loved that place. And but a few years went by, and when I was about at this time, I was still like in school, in high school, playing football, running track, that type of thing. I was in the FFA. I had horses. One day my uncle called me, and which was my grandma's son. He said, "Grandma bought another ranch." And I said, "Oh man," he said, "You want to go?" I said, "You dang right." So she bought a 2,000-acre ranch up in Giddings, Texas. So from there, I just spent a lot of time there. They had the Hamers hired again, and we were in the cow industry, and being in the cow industry, we were around horses, and so I just kept it going from there. And after that, I got involved in rodeo. Yeah. And the only reason I got involved in rodeo is because I was just interested in being a cowboy. So I didn't really have anybody teaching you. And back in those days, like if you were interested in horses and horsemanship, well, there wasn't any such animal as a clinician. Nobody ever heard of anything like that. So it was a lot about the school of hard knocks and that type of thing. So as I got older, once I graduated from high school, I just kind of really moved up to the ranch, and and lived up there and worked under the tutelage of Mr. Hamer, and we went to a lot of cattle sales, and when we worked the cattle, we all worked them horseback, and so I would do my best to just try to learn what I could about horses and horsemanship. So again, I won my PRCA card riding bulls and rode bulls all over the United States, all the big rodeos, Cheyenne, Houston, Fort Worth, Calgary. I did that for years and years, and you know, I kept riding those horses, and people would ask me to train their horses or break their horses, and really I was just going by the seat of my pants, you know, and trying to figure things out. And then a guy named Hank Kirshner from Oregon, I met him, and he was about the same age I was, and he said, well, let's do this cold starting thing together. And this was about 1980 something, and he was doing some pretty neat things with the horses, and I said, wow, that's really interesting. He said, yeah, I learned it. I went and watched a guy named Ray Hunt, and he said, if he ever comes in your area, you ought to go watch him. And I said, wow, man, I would do that. Then, so I heard that he was going to be, Ray Hunt was going to be in San Angelo, Texas. And so, man, I traveled out to San Angelo, and when I met Ray and watched him work and listened to him, that was really a big change in my life about how I worked with horses. And really what I learned more than anything that day was working with the horse and not against the horse. And there we just kind of kept growing and growing. So
yeah, and I know you rodeoed for a long time, so at what point in your life did you say, you know, I'm going to transition from riding bulls to training horses and making a career off training horses?
Well, you know, that's a good question, because I rode bulls a good while. Like in Texas, if you're going to ride bulls, and you got to ride pretty good. And I rode in open rodeos, or they had an association back then called Southwest Rodeo Association, and then there was the SRA. Then they had the TRA, Texas Rodeo Association. Then I finally started going to them RCA, which became the PRCA, and I rode bulls till I was really about 35, and when I started getting kind of crippled up and realized I was getting old, although I did some of my best bull riding later in my career, but I just got more and more interested in the horses. And it wasn't really a conscientious effort or anything. I just started working these horses, and finally I decided I'd have my own first school where people could bring their horses to the ranch. And so that first clinic, I guess you could call it, man, they brought Mustangs and 7- and 8-year-old wild broncs, and man, somehow I got them using Ray Hunt's methods, you know. And I always say when I started making them pay, they really started listening. So, but from there, I just it just kept going, you know.
Yeah.
People would bring me these wild horses, and then they'd pick them up and they'd say, well, what did you do? And then they wanted to come watch. And so that's how it started for me. So I was lucky enough to just kind of get in on the ground floor. And then from there I started traveling, going to different places. I went to California and Colorado, and people just started asking questions, and it just started growing for me. And then at one point I finally made my first, back then they didn't have DVDs, they had, what do you call them, big cartridges?
VHS.
A VHS.
Yeah.
I made my first VHS. It was just called Gentle Horse Training and Breaking with Craig Cameron. And you know, I didn't have a credit card machine or nothing, and I went and did this clinic, and I had about 50 of them things, and I sold every one of them. I thought I was the richest guy in the world. So, and then from there, just kept going.
Yeah. So tell me about the round pen days. You know, the clinician business has evolved so much, probably in the last 30 years or 20 years.
Yeah.
But you original clinicians started off. I mean, Ray Hunt, Tom, you, and you know, whoever else was in the mix, y'all started off going around the country, starting colts in the round pens, and I watch those old videos, and they would bring you some brink horses, you know, but you had to get out there, and you guys really specialized in starting these horses and getting them rode in an hour or a little longer, you know, and it's amazing, you know, and I think we've learned, you know, later on now we're spending more and more time with them, being a little more patient. But tell me about those days, you know, because you guys were kind of expected to accomplish a certain something.
You're right. You know, I didn't screen any of the horses. Whatever they brought, that's what I did. And it was tough, and those horses seemed to be a little bit wilder, and people would be sitting there, and they'd bring me some colt I'd never seen before, and within an hour's time or so, I'd be riding him. And I can remember on several occasions, people would just go, "I just don't believe you never had rode that horse before. I just don't believe that." And I'd say, "Well, there's the lady that owns it. Ask her." And he'd say, "Well, I still don't believe it." And I would look up there and say, "Well, are you from around here?" And he'd go, "That's right, son." They'd always call me son, you know. And back then, I was a little bit younger. And I'd say, "Well, you got a horse that hadn't been started?" "You dang right, son." And finally I'd say, "Well, why don't you go get him?" "You better believe it, son. I'll go get him." And man, they'd get up, and I'd continue on with this clinic, you know, showing stuff. And sure enough, about an hour or so later, here comes some guy in some open top trailer, and I mean, he'd have a bronc back there. That son gun might be 7 or 8 years old, and you knew you were in trouble when they had to back the trailer up to the round pen to get him in there. But shoot, I'd get in there and go to work and do what I had to do, and by the time I got through, that guy'd stick his hand up and say, "Well, I'm a believer now." So, and what it was the way you presented yourself to the horse, and so back then you did what you had to do. Some of the pens I rode in weren't that good; they weren't that safe, but you just again, that's adjusting to fit the horse, the situation, and the circumstance, and that's something we still do today. But you know, today I do want to offer the horses a little bit more time. I don't want to think in terms of time. I want to work at the horse's level, just make a little progress each day, earn that trust, earn that respect, you know, build that confidence, never do anything to destroy it. And so again, it's not really a method, it's a way of life. And that's what you and I are trying to live every day here at the Double Horn Ranch, whether people are here watching or whether they're not. You know, we're going to still not just talk the talk, but walk the walk, no matter who's watching. You know, we're going to do the best we can for these horses and get the best result we can. And when we do, these horses really turn out nice. So,
you know, I believe that the start that you've had and the stories you tell, it tells a lot about who you are as a person. And you know, you live that cowboy lifestyle and you have your whole life. So, you know, I've heard these stories, you know, a few times in my life, and it never gets old. I love hearing them. So we're just happy that, you know, we can share them with the world, and we look forward to doing this some more with you, and keep letting you know, people who love you get to know you a little bit better. So we appreciate your time this morning. And anything else you'd like to say?
Well, just keep visiting like this, and you know, I'm lucky enough to you know, have you passing this legacy down and keep this cowboy way of life going. You know, I think that's really important, and what we want to do is we want to help people, we want to help horses, and again show them that the magic is really within ourselves and within our horses. And if we again offer things up right, you know, anybody can have a great result with these horses.
Sir. Well, good. Well, I'm Cole Cameron and Craig Cameron. We'll see you next time.
You bet. All right.